Hi, folks. Welcome back to Smart Simple Fit. My name is Davin, and today I have the absolute pleasure of speaking to Aaron from FitLabb. He's the owner of FitLabb. He has over 30 years of fitness experience and over 20 years in the fitness industry. So it's going to be a real treat for me to be able to speak with someone so knowledgeable and experienced and jacked and stacked and juicy and also down to earth. So, Aaron, thanks for joining me today. How are you doing?
Good. I'm starting to feel like I should be walking around with a cane right now with how old I am. How old you made me sound. I'm kidding. No, thank you very much for having me on. I have a lot of respect for you, and it was just such a nice thing when you reached out and wanted to have me on. So it's truly my pleasure, and thank you for that kind introduction.
Well, it's been great to get to know you over, months now over social media. So this is for the audience, this is actually our first time sort of meeting each other or like speaking over the phone even. So
Even though
it's
we've chatted a bit through DMs, but never actually talked in person like this.
great. All right. So if you were to give us a summary of what like really got you passionate about fitness, got you into the industry even, things like that, like what would be the highlights of sort of your backstory, right? Like tell us about Aaron. Why fitness, Aaron? Why? When did you come into this crazy world?
Good question. So yeah, my story, I feel like in some way has some similarities to some other people, but it's also very different. So I was this scrawny little nerdy kid, and my thanks, mom. My mom dressed me in pants with built-in suspenders, with big giant glasses, with
Yeah.
that had the strap around them, so I looked like Steve Urkel, and it was. I mean, I literally looked like Steve Urkel. Big poofy hair. I mean, it was bad. And so I looked like a little old man in this kid's body, the way and my pants were hiked up like halfway up to my chest. It was so bad. And and I went to, and I was just this smart, nice kid, and just was kind to everybody, expecting it would be the same back. Well, let's just say that that's not how life works. Unfortunately, it should, but it doesn't always work that way. And so I got bullied extremely badly. I got beat up regularly, bullied so bad. I didn't have a single friend for 3 years through middle school. To say the least, it was probably. I always tell everyone this was by far the worst time of my life. And at the end, honestly, I almost didn't make it through alive. And there was another kid who was in my grade, and my grade or a year older, I forget now, but he went to school with me, and he he also was similar, and he committed suicide. And I kind of woke up. That was like a wake up call for me, and because I'm like, oh my God, it was terrible. Like everyone was so sad about it, but the bullying really pushed him to that limit. He just couldn't take it anymore. So I said to myself, like, this is my wake up call. I'm not going to let these people do this to me. I'm not going to be defeated. I'm not going to let this be my fate and my future as well, because, I was absolutely miserable, like miserable. You can't even imagine. I remember even like sometimes faking sickness so I didn't have to go to school. I just couldn't stand it. It was terrible. And so that was a defining moment in my life. I wish this kid knew how much he impacted me. But going forward, finally that summer, before going into high school, I said, "That's it. I'm getting all new clothes, suspender pants thrown out, all new clothes, like getting contacts." My parents, I finally convinced them to let me get contact lenses. I discovered what hair gel was, and I started actually fixing my hair normal. But the most important thing was, I said, I'm not going to get pushed around anymore. I'm going to build myself up. I went to the gym. I started going to sneaking into the local Y gym, getting kind of sneaking past security, getting in a couple times. But then when the school year started, that's when I really started going to the gym. And every single day after school, I was in the gym 4 to 5 days a week, whenever I could get in there. And I was so determined to change my life, to turn things around, and I needed that confidence. I needed that inner strength, as well as the outer physical strength. So I worked harder than everybody in there. I had no clue what the hell I was doing, to be honest. When I first started, I would watch what everyone would do, and this was like going into the lion's den, because a lot of the guys that bullied me were the ones that were in there too, and they were all hanging out and fooling around, and they were working out too. But nowhere near the intensity that I was. I was on a mission to be bigger and stronger than them so that I could then defend myself effectively and not get bullied and beaten up again. So I learned from watching. I got hurt a bunch because, we all do stupid things in the beginning and before we know any better. And again, you shared kind of a bit about my age. So I'll share this. This was really before the internet. And so all the information I was getting was either from my phys ed teachers or the high school coaches that were sometimes there after school, which I very quickly learned were not the best source of information, far from it, when it comes to fitness stuff. And, and also magazines, which we all know now, Muscle Fitness, all those magazines, not always the purveyors of the best information for fitness stuff. Everyone likes to think that they're getting good info. It's really just all sales pitches and whatever new flashy stuff they can throw in there. So that was where I was getting my initial information, but I was working my butt off and I was pushing myself harder and getting, I had no idea what progressive overload was or any of that stuff, but I was effectively using it before I even realized it. I was pushing, I was going almost to failure every rep, every working set. Every working set. And, and I was just crushing it. And I built up extremely fast and, strength and size. And, I remember that fall, newbie gains, right? You get stronger and bigger really quickly the first 6 to 12 months, and then it, slows down, obviously. But so I remember having kids that tried bullying me and push me around later on that fall. And I beat the what out of them. And this stuff continued to happen. And I was able to defend myself. And I was able to I'm a pacifist. I don't like fighting. Let me just put that out there. So I'm not condoning fighting or anything like that. It was purely self-defense. When someone would try to start trouble with me, I had the right to defend myself, and I did. And I wasn't going to take any crap anymore. So that was how I started in fitness, right? It was out of a necessity to change my life and change the course of my life. And I even say this, it saved my life. So I know what fitness did for me and the massive, huge improvements that it gave me in my quality of life and everything. And then it just became my lifestyle from that point on. It just kind of became a part of how I defined who I was as a person. And, and I just developed this passion for it. I went to college, was an exercise science major. I originally intended on being a doctor of some sort, but eventually ended up getting my degree and becoming a teacher and also a trainer. I started managing the fitness center at Rutgers University for was it 1 or 2 years? I forget now, but there were other reasons too, because I would open the place up. I would have a key to the place so I could go work out like at 1 a.m. if I wanted to, but no one else was there. It was pretty cool. But it was a great job. And I was in there again, working out probably 4 or 5 days a week. I had, great split. And even though I had very little free time, the gym was always top of the totem pole in priorities. So, I got my training certification and I started to train at my local gym around the year 2001. And, this was still like, the fitness industry was still like Wild West a little bit back then. And, and so I was, I had so much I still had to learn, even though I had those years of practical experience. And then also learning it in college, there was still so much that I had no idea I didn't know yet that I would then learn through the years of experience that I got in the profession, through the hundreds and hundreds of clients that I would then work with after that point. And so I've had a few other career adventures since then, right? So I taught for 4 years and I got into commercial real estate as well. But all through those years, the one consistent thing was not only that I was still training myself, but that I was also, I was still training clients. So even though for example, I was also a fitness model for a number of years in my 20s, which is kind of weird to say. This was before Instagram days. This was when fitness models were like, you'd be in a catalog or a magazine or a billboard or a TV commercial. I've done all those. Right. And as a matter of fact, one of my agents for a short period of time, was also represented Frank Seppi, who was like one of the most photographed fitness models, bodybuilders of all time. I believe he also represented Mike O'Hearn back then too. So I didn't know Mike, but yeah, that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down. But that I was not like that. I did it more as like a fun little hobby on the side. I wasn't as good looking as those guys, right? But there's a whole other things to talk about with that. But it was fun. It was fun. And then when I was what was this? Where was I going with this? I got distracted.
Where your fitness career went
yes,
into real estate. Yeah.
So interesting. When I got into real estate, I just left teaching. And I remember one day, this was an interesting thing. I had trained a couple of very interesting people who were the team doctors for like some of the local teams, like back then the Red Bulls, the soccer team, the Red Bulls was called the Metro Stars. They were they were the team chiropractor, I believe it was, for them, and also for the New Jersey Devils. So I trained this couple, husband and wife, who were the doctors, and I did a great job. And it turns out their receptionist, well, I didn't even really know her at the time. I mean, I would see her and I would say hello, but I didn't like know her. She just knew who I was, and I worked with her bosses, and she knew how they were, and what a great job I did. She was engaged. She happened to be engaged to a very famous NBA basketball player's personal assistant. And so one day I'm driving back from lunch, going back to the office. I was in commercial real estate and property management at the time before I became a broker in Manhattan. And I get a phone call, and I was getting a lot of prank phone calls at the time because, from former students and whatever. And so this guy calls me up and says, "Hey, I'm calling because X person," naming my client. He'll remain nameless to protect his privacy, but one of the most famous NBA players that, at the time, from one of the local teams, Nets or Knicks, kind of give you a little idea maybe. But he wanted to, he goes, "Oh, he's looking for a trainer and he wants someone really good. I heard you're one of the best. We'd like for you to consider working with him." And I thought this was a prank call, because who wouldn't, right? So I'm like, "Yeah, go to hell, buddy." And I hung up the phone, turned the cell phone off. And thank goodness about 2 minutes later, I get a phone call back, and he goes, "Don't hang up the phone. This is not a prank call. I swear, I am who I am. We're calling about this guy. I'm his personal assistant. He heard about you. He wants to work with you, at least a trial run this week. What is it going to take?" And I told him what my fee was, because it was a little higher, because I had to commute into the city and drop other clients. And lo and behold, I started working with him. It was who it was, and it wasn't a prank phone call. And that was the beginning of like working with some high level NBA players and celebrities, and that opened up the floodgates to this whole other group of people that I was very lucky to have the opportunity to meet and to work with. Some crazy stories about that stuff, that part of my life. But I was still doing that while I was in real estate. I would go to the office in a suit in the city, and I would usually have a duffel bag if I was training a client in the city or elsewhere after work, because I have to kind of take my Clark Kent outfit off and put on my Superman uniform, right? And my training thing. And I remember one time I didn't, and I'm training one of my clients, one of my NBA guys, wearing my suit, and he was like, "What are you doing, man?" So it's some interesting stuff that went on, but that was really how I got into it. And then, which brings me to the present time, where around 2018, I mean, my whole core, like who I am, is fitness. This is my passion. This is what I love. This is what defines me in every possible way, even more so than my car hobby and all the other stuff. And so I knew I wanted to come back to my roots. And yes, while training high-level athletes and big people like that was amazing, and it was like an irreplaceable experience that, and also potentially very lucrative, I'm starting to look at the whole industry and what was going on, and what a big flaming dumpster fire it had become. Social media was taking off with it, and this was around 2018, and Instagram was already huge. And every Joe Schmo with a set of abs was claiming to be a fitness expert and was spewing out absolute garbage information and nonsense stuff. Try this, for a great ab workout. And it showed someone, getting punched in the stomach by a boxer, that's going to give you great abs. No, it's going to rupture your spleen and put you in the hospital or kill you is what it's going to do, stupid. And you're going to get sued for telling people to do these things. So I was watching this nonsense and it was driving me insane. And I said, I've got to do something. Like, I can't sit idly by and watch all this in good faith. And so that was one part of motivation. The other part of it, and that was more for the social media, like the videos that I make on YouTube. But the other part of it was that I realized that there's a huge population, this massive ocean of people, of beginners, everyone from people trying to lose weight to people who want to build themselves up, get stronger, and they're being missed. They were being denied access to high level or any decent level of
content whatsoever.
Of ability to work with a fitness professional that would give them good advice. And they weren't going to pay my celebrity rates. So I had to think of how can I create a scalable platform that would allow me to work with people not in person anymore, because that wasn't going to be the best use of my time, but to be able to provide something on a really high level that was incredibly valuable, that was still able to really be very effective in communicating everything that I needed to get across and teach them how to do this the right way, and be really meaningful. And that was how I came up with the concept of FitLabb and the online coaching platform that I founded and created and still own and operate myself today. So, which is currently in a very good growing phase, partnering with another company and working on that as we speak. And also, so basically that was it. And I had to come up with something that was affordable. And in creating this, I'm talking too much. I want to hear back from you, but what I did, you're going to love this part. I actually was researching what other people were doing. And so, I made a video, a short video joking about this, but it was based on the reality and truth. So I basically hired a whole bunch of the online coaches that were out there at the time, a whole spectrum of people. And what I found was this: I thought it was going to be hard for me to improve upon whatever they did and had going on. Nope. It was not even, it was like taking candy from a baby. These people had hands down the worst garbage that they were doing, the way they were coaching people online. Send a picture, blah, 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 whatever. And fill out this form. I found that in 90% or more of the cases, you weren't even actually working with the person that they claimed you were working with, like the person behind it. Okay. Number two, they were highly unresponsive. You're lucky if you heard back 3 days later. Sometimes it took a week for them to ask and respond to a question that I asked or whatever. Their questionnaires, they would ask questions like, all right, do you have any health issues or injuries or whatever? Okay, I happen to have 2 herniated lumbar discs, right? That I got probably 11 years or so ago, something like that, 10 years ago. And it precludes me from doing certain things, or I have to be very cautious about those things now. I have to take it into consideration with my training. So I put that in. I said, I can't do heavy squats anymore, or heavy deadlifts. Like, I have to be careful of those things. I still should do them, but I have to be careful. And so I would get the program back, and it had me doing heavy squats and deadlifts like 2-3 times a week, even maxing out. I'm like, are you really? And they wouldn't even, it's like, it was, and I realized that almost every single one of these custom programs was just little more than a template that maybe they modified a tiny bit, but in most cases they didn't. It was just a standard template program that I paid for a custom program for, when it wasn't at all that. Yeah. That's basically the state of the industry at the time. And I said, boy, oh boy. And it was usually just, some basic crappy looking Excel spreadsheet that I could have made in 10 minutes. And it was all of it was unprofessional, was poorly executed in every possible way. So it was so simple to innovate on that. But I didn't just innovate a little. What I did was such a sweeping, massive improvement in every possible way. I'll have to actually show you sometime. I think you'd be impressed. But that's what I did. And that's why I did it, how I did it, and how I got to where I am today.
Fantastic. Well, you know what? Innovation. That's what it's all about. If it's going to be a Wild West anyways, if there's a deficit in the quality of a product and someone comes along and has the willingness and the capability, jump on it. There's your opportunity. I got to say, I can relate to that in the sense of like the videos. I think that's one of the things that motivated me to start making videos on YouTube. You see, there's a tangible deficit in a lot of quality of the information. You know what? Just go in there and actually put some passion into it. Make it actually
Yeah.
custom, right? Make it actually a custom. So yeah, that's probably even a problem still today. I mean, like we were when we were discussing before this, I'm okay with naming names. That's one of the controversies of Greg Doucette, right? Is getting the people to work for him to make custom programs. Like, oh, don't worry, it's this price instead because someone who works for me. And what's his screening process, right? Like we don't know from that. So you never know what you're going to get when you get some kind of like a custom program. You got to be careful. Be careful with
And by the way, template programs, one of the big problems with them is they fail to take into account any injuries, pre-existing conditions, any imbalances, any pain or that person deals with. They fail to deal with any of those things effectively because it doesn't have that personal touch at all. So there's so many problems with it. And if you're not screening effectively, like I have no qualms about turning a client away if I don't feel I'm the best fit for them, or if there's some health issue that's a major red flag. And I'm like, hey, you either need to get totally checked out and cleared by a doctor with a list of what limitations you have and what suggestions they have, because legally, ethically, I have to do that, right? I've never had a person get injured under my watch, knock on wood, and I want to keep that record going. And because I'm very careful. Very careful. I focus on the safety first and doing things the right way. And if I feel there's an issue that could happen from working with a certain person, or that I wouldn't be doing right by them if I worked with them, that I have to either refer them to someone else or tell them they need to go to a doctor before anyone can even work with them, or even turn them away entirely, because that's the right way to do things. So yes, there's so many people who don't screen. They're happy to take your money, and who knows what they're actually doing or delivering on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a big problem. And that comes down to like assessment, right? Like you need to actually be assessing. It's like part of your screening process, I think, needs to be getting an actual physical grip on how this person moves. And so one of the things
Yes.
that I try and emphasize with my clients is, okay, let's keep this really simple. Do you feel comfortable attempting even a body weight squat? Yes, I do. Okay, great. Let's attempt even a partial depth. Did that feel fine? Yes, it did. Okay, let's go a little bit deeper. And then teach them too. If there's something you could change about the movement, guide them through what that might be. And then by the end of an assessment, you might have them doing a decent looking squat without pain to a depth that suits their mobility and injury history, something like that. And there's no like magic to that. No one, I don't think anyone really has like a patent on the correct way to do a physical assessment. I went to college for exercise science as well, and I'm sure you were as well. We were taught assessment protocols. A lot of those I've simplified over the years because I
Oh
found
yeah.
they didn't translate necessarily to like actual problems people have or actual exercises, right? Like I couldn't imagine there's a great value in only getting someone to mimic a movement in a way that is completely different than how they're going to be exercising, right? Because if sure you have a problem in this extreme position that it doesn't mimic any real exercise, well, is it really a problem? Is it relevant, in the context of training? So yeah, not only do you need a screening process, you need one that makes sense, and you need to be able to, really get some depth in there. So, okay, where are these issues actually occurring? For some people,
Totally agree.
they've had injuries, and then when I have them do like just like some basic, like just some basic drills, it turns out they have no pain or tightness whatsoever in relevant, normal looking ranges of motion. In which case we say, well, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll go light at the start. We're definitely not going to max out, but it seems like you're good to go at least to get started. It's not going to be a problem yet.
Yeah, I mean, look, I have a full health history I put people through, and I have things that are red flags if they check them off, and that that then sends automatically to them a thing that they have to get sent to their doctor. And I'm also one of the very few, if not one of the only people in the fitness industry that I'm HIPAA compliant, because I protect my clients' privacy, and I consider what we do very, very important. And that's why I don't put like, before after pictures on my website, because I feel like that's invasive to, people's privacy. And I've had people question, oh, why don't you have that on your website? Well, because I'm protecting my client's privacy. Okay. I'm confident in my ability as a fitness coach, as fitness professional. I don't need to go and have to show you, like, look at this person's amazing transformation and put them out there uncomfortably so to prove that. It shouldn't be about that, even though I get it. But at the same time, so then I put everybody through not only the health history, which is, a very important, vital thing, but then I have virtual assessments that I put them through as a workout per se on my platform. And then they film themselves doing XYZ, movement patterns and or exercises from this angle, from that angle. They send it back to me through the platform. And I look at all these different markers, same way I'm sure you do, to see, okay, what is going on here when they're doing the squat? Are there any of these, issues that are popping up that I see from looking from the front angle, looking from the side angle? What about during push-ups? Right? How is their form, and what also is there scapular winging going on? Is there other stuff happening? So I'm looking at all these different things that in all these, even just flexibility from one arm to the other, there's so many different things that are factors here, because it helps you identify where the weaknesses are, imbalances are, why they're having pain, right? Or other issues. And are they going to be able to effectively do something like squats without injuring themselves or exacerbating a problem? So all this comes down to the good assessments. But then another thing that I'm a very big believer in, which is also with most people that I work with, there's always something, whether it's small or something really that is worse and needs to be addressed immediately. There's always some foundational elements, to some degree at least, that I'd like to build into their program to, if they're having pain. Like, look, most people have some issues in their upper back or neck or their lower back. Most people have something going on, or a knee or whatever. These are all things that, for the most part, through an intelligently designed and appropriate training program, can be addressed, improved, maybe even fixed. I'm not claiming to be a medical professional here doing that. That's not my job. No. And I'm not a physical therapist, even though I basically studied to be one almost. But I at the same time, these are the things that I'm talking about are things that are really muscular in nature and are usually related to some sort of a lack of strength or muscle development in some area. And if you identify that, it's pretty easy to fix that. And the vast majority of my clients, if not almost all, who I've worked with that came to me with like pain in their shoulder and in their neck and upper back or lower back, within 2 to 4 weeks of working with them, while we're in a program as well, as a big part of that program, I build in all these foundational elements that focus on fixing this stuff and addressing it directly. And we strengthen up, we fix these imbalances, we fix these issues, and you know what? They don't have pain anymore. It goes away for the most part. And now we're able to really focus on the building phase, whether it's building strength or muscle or both or whatever it is. Now we're able to build on a rock solid foundation rather than building on a crumbling one, right? Because you don't want to build on a crumbling one, because what's going to happen? You're going to fall apart. You're going to build and exacerbate those problems without addressing them. So this is a big focus of mine when it's appropriate and necessary, which it happens to be quite a bit.
So you're saying you don't take absolute beginners and during their assessment, max out deadlifts and squats so you know how strong they are, and then you can calculate.
Yeah. I can't stand when I see stuff like that. Okay. Actually, so as an aside, I have a cousin down in Georgia, and this is an interesting little side story. So they were just up visiting, and he was telling me about how I think he's going to be a junior in high school, and he's taking this class in his high school for the fall. And the teacher, this has been a class for quite some time. The teacher's like, I guess a football coach or something. And they get graded based on a weekly max, 1 rep max lift. And weekly, high school kids who are beginners. Okay. And so they grade them based on the increase of their 1 rep max in several different lifts every week. So Friday is 1 rep max day. And if you don't improve, you don't get a good grade. It's like, oh my God. what a disaster this is. How unhealthy, how terrible this is for and his older brother, my other cousin, he took this class years ago when he was in high school, and he has knee issues now permanently that stemmed from doing this. Okay, because they're not teaching the right form. They might think they are. They're not teaching the right form. All right, let's be honest here. I've seen his form. He didn't learn the right form. And no knock on my cousin. He's a great kid, and he does work out. I've tried teaching him since then, but he has knee problems now permanently because of this. All right. And the younger one, I was just like, let me talk to your teacher. I'll tell him a thing or two, maybe I'll send him this video, but to address this. But you tell me, why is 1 rep max a bad thing? Why, especially beginners, but in general, why is it dangerous? What are the issues?
Yeah, 100%.
From your perspective, what are the problems with that?
Well, it's like we're hinting at already with the beginners. It's a lack of control, and you're completely foreign to this. So maybe if you're weak, sure, you could say the loads maybe aren't that heavy. So in some cases you can get away with it. But at the same time, you also just gave an example of someone who's got knee issues that likely can be traced back to that type of thing. So not only is it a high risk when you're at your absolute most strength, your risk of failing the rep is probably pretty high when it's at the highest, because if you overshoot, well, then it's going to have some consequences. Or if you don't even overshoot how strong you are, you just do it wrong, that's going to have some consequences. You put the bar on your back and you walk it out, and then you bend down. Let's say you're not used to having good foot pressure evenly distributed in your feet, and then your heels come up. Well, when your heels come up on a back squat, you might arch your back and compensate. Forward, yep. That's right. Knees go forward, arch your back. Like something's going to compensate in a way that really doesn't feel good. And I can actually relate to that story. We would have an an assignment when I was in high school, where part of the assignment was to go and basically like 1 rep max everything. That'd be like once a semester. And, most of the things.
That's bad enough, but it's still better, a lot better than what he's doing.
Yeah, it's not weekly, and we weren't graded based on our ability to increase. It was just sort of the idea was like, all right, use this information to, set some goal for the end of the semester, that type of thing. But even then, some of them were stupid, because it'd be like, take the calf machine and do 1 rep max. Personally, I don't recall that I ever did that. I probably worked up to a heavy set of 10 or something like that. There's some movements that lateral raise, they just aren't suited to 1 rep max. So doing a 1 rep max exposes every technical deficiency that you have. If you already have a history of some kind of injury or mobility issue, then all that's going to be exposed. Your likelihood of failing is high, and not to mention just the stress on the joints itself. So for so many reasons, and then you're not supervising it with a qualified, practitioner of any kind, you can't mitigate any of those risks. So
100%. And by the way, you're also, what if your core strength isn't where it needs to be, right? Yeah. Which let's be honest, most people, especially newbies, beginners, are not going to have the necessary core strength to be able to handle doing heavy deadlifts or heavy squats the right way. Okay, so it's going to put their back in a compromised situation. Bad bracing
mechanics, right?
Yeah, they don't know that. I guarantee you, this football coach or teacher, whatever he is not teaching them how to do this properly. I guarantee you. So because if he was, he wouldn't be having them doing weekly max rep sets. So
this guy belongs in like an Eastern European country, like
from 30, 40 years ago. It's like it's nonsense. So, and the other thing too, it's just ego. It's all ego. So I personally never have clients do 1 rep maxes, never, as a rule, because the risk to reward ratio is way too high, way too skewed in the risk factor, right? side. So, and we also know there's no need to do 1 rep maxes. Why? You can use the percentages to do that. If you do 75% of your 1 rep max, we can calculate. It's about 10 reps. Okay. 10 reps is 75%. If you do 80% of your 1 rep max, you're hitting about 8 reps. Use the percentages. Boom, easy. Then you can calculate if the person is even able to use a calculator to figure this simple math out. You can calculate what your 1 rep max is based on doing reasonable rep ranges and until you hit failure. And by the way, another thing, it is not, in my opinion, it is not safe to do squats to failure. Okay. That is in my opinion, that's a big no-no. That's asking for a disaster. Okay. That's one of the exercises I personally, looking at it from a safety standpoint, I don't think should be done to failure. I know people do. I disagree with that.
Yeah. And there's a big difference between you got away with doing it, but does that make it a representative of a best practice, like a good
Yes,
idea? You know, you can get
exactly.
away with a lot of things a few times, maybe even 10 times, but you're going to get away with it
Your
forever.
luck is going to run out sooner or later.
Yep. Just like with different topics I've had with other people in the past, sometimes we say it's not a question of if, it's a question of when, right?
Yeah,
And that's definitely the
it's
case
an
for
assured thing.
100%, man, 100%. Yeah, and not only the whole percentage thing, which I totally agree on, but I think the whole evidence side, which I'm not that big on, but it seems to be moving in a direction where it'll say like more and more the percentages that are like needed to be like adequate stimulus for size, probably even strength to some degree. Like it's lower, gets lower, gets lower. It's like actually you can get away with this. Okay, you can get away with this. You can get away with this. Which probably goes back to some of the bodybuilding magazines you were reading when you were so much younger, right? It's like there's a lot of high rep stuff. High reps can be very underrated. And I just spoke to Faz very recently from Faz Lifts, and it's like I would say it almost exactly like you. I think that the vast majority of my clients, or even so many people watching this video on YouTube, they should spend a lot of time far away from their 1 rep max. Like not even just
100%.
doing 1 rep max, but like back away from it, percentage wise, back away from it for the sake of
Totally
quality,
agree.
safety, sustainability. So
Most of my clients, most of my coaching is in terms of rep range, stays within the 8 to 15 rep range. That's a very safe, very reasonable rep range. 15 on the high end, right? But that's assuming you're doing hard reps in there, and you're not just like sandbagging it to get to 15, right? And 8 reps, that's obviously more strength focused. So sometimes will I have them drop down to as low as 6, 7 reps? Maybe, if they can't quite reach 8, okay, then that tells me something too. But below that, I start thinking that my belief is that the risk to reward ratio, it starts going up too much. And that's out of my comfort zone. I also don't work with power lifters. That's
what I was just going to say, right? We're trying
that's
to
not
make a
my
distinction.
specialty.
General population and their goals, and the relevance and their training history. We also, we're probably working with people who are also tend to be older, right? Like not spring chickens with no history of anything who have those powerlifting goals. It's different.
It depends. I mean, I have a range of clients that go everywhere from high school to college kids, all the way up to people in their 40s, 50s, and I've even had a couple in their 60s. I'm talking since I started FitLabb, and but it's probably more skewed towards the full spectrum. But if I had to say the concentrated area, it's probably people in their 20s to like late 30s is the biggest bulk of the age range. But again, big spectrum. So, and I've worked with everyone from every age population, every type of client over the years. And also, I've had plenty of people who were high level athletes and whatnot that I've worked with too, and even celebrities. So and every person is different also. There's no one size fits all. There's no one program that works for everybody the same way. So everything is fully individualized because it has to be if it's going to be effective and safe.
Yep. And safe. That's the key, right? Not everything
if you get hurt, you can't get any gains whatsoever. So it has to be safe by design. And you don't want to get sued and have your whole house taken from you. So, we got to be safe.
That's it. Okay. So we've touched on, I think, a very important big picture topic that we both wanted to discuss today, and that's how to distinguish the good from the bad coaches, right? Like personal training as an industry, perhaps rightly so, is in a lot of ways laughable. Like a lot of the stuff that you saw on social media and probably otherwise too. So how do we give people an idea of what to look for in a good coach, other than talking about assessments, basic safety, wise practices of programming, percentages, stuff like that? What else do you think separates the good coaches from the bad?
So let's start with social media, because this is, I think, the core of the issue. Because unfortunately, the people who who talk about, present, or show the most flashy or absurd or stupid things, or new and interesting, different stuff, are the ones that seem to get the most attention. Right. And they're the ones that then get people buying their programs, buying their products, their energy drink that they're promoting, their supplement line that's probably trash. Buy this. So what I've noticed is this, right? And this is what everyone watching should always look for. If someone is pushing stuff that promoting things that is new and unique and creative and like looks flashy, a booty blasting workout, that oh, build your booty with the bigger with this, get a shelf on your butt, all that stuff. Like okay, first of all, that a booty workout should not be a thing. It should be part of your overall program to work your glutes. Healthy, but in balance with everything else. If you're just building your glutes, I'm sorry, that's a terribly imbalanced program, super specific, and it's just bad. Like, it just shows their lack of knowledge and experience, and they're just catering to whatever someone wants to hear, and that's all they're doing, and they're getting the views because they probably put whatever in their pants to make it look like they have a bigger butt than they have. That's a thing, unfortunately. It's been proven recently, but anyway.
People will click on butt cheeks. Yeah.
Yes. So here's the thing. Look at what they're presenting, right? Is it something nonsense like Scott Matheson, who I have no respect for that guy. He's in phenomenal shape. Who knows if he takes PEDs or not? He may not, whatever. But that's a guy, if you look at his content, mostly on Instagram, he's doing a million silly things where he's doing push-ups, then jumping up and flipping in the air, and then doing who knows what. I can't even explain it. Like, it's a complete, absolute nonsense garbage. And he tells, oh, here's a great core workout. Do this. And it's all that nonsense. Or even worse, he has a few in the past where he's like getting punched in the stomach by a professional boxer, and like, hell, this is going to get you really rock hard abs. Try this if you can. Are you kidding? Are you out of your mind? So this is showmanship, right? Much like Liver King, much like whatever. People have to be smarter. They have to be more intelligent with their decision of who are they watching. And by the way, when you watch one of these people, when you give them a view, you're helping them. You're helping them spread to more people. So keep that in mind, because the people that are putting out quality information, you, myself, guys like Jeffrey Schofield, who we're all friends with, right? Natural Hypertrophy, Faz, all these other guys. These are people who should be getting the views, because we're the ones that are putting out the good information that's actually helping people, that's actually adding to people's health and their fitness, and is going to get them places in their fitness career, right? Whatever they want to do in their progress. Whereas watching all this garbage is going to keep pushing that nonsense out to more people. And yeah, it's crazy to see. So people watch it, but it's like, why? So that's the biggest thing with social media. If someone's pushing some new, creative, interesting looking thing that no one else is doing or whatever, that's a giant red flag on fire that this is someone that it doesn't know what they're doing, or they're just trying to get clicks and views and blow up in the social media and whatever, the algorithms. Now, as far as a coach, you have to look at what someone's, for the most part, what their education is, what their experience is. There are exceptions to that rule. Okay. Again, like my friend Jeffrey Schofield, he's a rare exception. I used to always think that you had to have, an education or a real background in this and whatever. He is a very rare case where he's proven me wrong, where this is a guy who did it by learning from trial and error, through studying it on his own, okay, and from personal experience. And he really figured it out, and he's doing well. And I have a lot of respect for him as a human being, as a friend, but also as someone in the fitness industry. Okay. And I don't think he has a training certification. Now, should he, for insurance purposes and legal purposes? He should, that's my opinion, just for him protecting himself, to get that legitimacy. I know it's a piece of paper at the end of the day, but it's a good idea to have, right? So, but then again, I'm a guy that does things by the book. I always think of myself in court of law, like I have to be able to say I did everything right, God forbid. But that's me. Everyone teach their own. But my point is, look in general at someone's career, their history. Are they, and if they're giving you a program, are they providing something of real value? Are they taking into account who you actually are, what your actual goals are, where you are in your training career, I call it, right? Or in your journey, your training journey, your fitness journey. So that's and there's so many other things we could talk about, but I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this too.
I think that's really well said. I think that's really well said. I would even be like biased even towards like the experience, some guy like 20 years experience versus like 10 years experience with less certifications or something like that, like more experience, less certification. I'm definitely going to be biased towards that. Not to knock, there are probably a lot out there of like even certifications that are made by people who do experience, so that you are getting a distilled knowledge when you get one of these things. But then there's always the whole cereal box certificate, right? Like the most generic one and that sort of thing. And just because something carries a name and that maybe that name has some status doesn't always translate. But either way, I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole of personal training certifications. But what I will say is that the way they treat people tells a lot about their intentions and who they are and their character. And
what is your intentionality? What's your intentions for what you do and why? Are you in it for fame and fortune? Or are you in it for really helping people?
Yeah, exactly. Will they churn you out to make, like you're talking about, testimonials, which you don't emphasize a lot, or transformations photos? Are they going to churn you out for that sake? Meanwhile, under the photos, that person's dealing with injuries they accumulated working with you, right? Like there's what is under the what is under the surface? What are they willing to do to you to get what they want? Whether that's the money, the success story, both, et cetera, that sort of thing. So, treating you like an individual is extremely important. And then also listening and taking seriously your concerns, because I think you could probably speak on this too, Aaron. I'll be curious to hear your thoughts. Sometimes people think they have concerns with whether it's certain issues or medical things, and it's been exaggerated. Like the way it's been explained to them has been exaggerated, where they're too scared to like pick things up. Like they genuinely think if they do a deadlift for 65 pounds, they're just going to like snap in half. And you're like, okay, well, let's ease into it and let's see how it goes. And it's like, oh, this went extremely well. And it's like, yeah, we can start small and then work big. But then at the same time, then there's someone who's like, I've been in a car accident and my spine shattered.
My back. Like, that's a case where it's not appropriate.
Exactly, right. It's like there's
you got to look at the specifics. 100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree. And by the way, another thing I meant to say is a bad coach, and they're a dime a dozen like this, and this is in-person training or an online coach who will throw you to the deep end right away or put you through one of their hard workouts because they want to impress you. Look at, oh man, you're going to be so sore. I'm going to kick your butt today. And they put you through this crazy workout. That is the kiss of death, right? For working with clients, especially new clients or deconditioned or beginners, right? Why? Not only are they going to be sore out of their mind to the point where sitting on a toilet is going to be a 10-minute process because they're going to be in so much pain. Walking down a flight of stairs or even anything, it's just moving, getting out of bed in the morning is going to be like you need a hospital, a walker just to get out and roll. It's horrible. That is not the way to do it. You're going to injure someone right off the bat. You're going to make them absolutely hate the process. That's a terrible trainer. That's someone who's trying to prove something that they're all they're proving is their lack of knowledge and experience.
Yeah, it's like the drill sergeant phase, right?
Oh,
like everyone's going to come in like, I'm going to be the tough guy. I'm going to scold everyone for every little thing done wrong on the diet instead of praising the fact that they're down 1 pound. Could they have gone down 2? Hey, they're down 1. Like keep them on that route, right? Rather than just imply that they're like this horrible person because they had like one glass of wine or something. And then also
we're all human.
We're all human. The reality is, if we had that type of drill sergeant type trainer, we'd have some problems with it too. We have some complaints too, right? Like I think Aaron and I could probably relate. Part of the program is making a program that you like, not just as appropriate for you as an individual, but if it's like ridiculous demands, like forget about it. And so many clients have come to me, Aaron, and they've tried workout programs in the past. Maybe it's with trainers. Sometimes it's just on their own or fitness classes. And the only time they really accumulated injuries or hit plateaus is when they were just doing all kinds of time in the gym that they didn't need to be, all kinds of intensity they didn't need to be playing with. They're just piling on variations after variations. And then after cutting their workload in half working with me, they get better results despite being middle-aged now versus like This is when they're 10 years younger in the past. So sometimes more is less when you're doing like way too much.
You're talking, come on, you're talking
Yeah.
about Ryan Humiston here.
You don't need to do 87 different variations of these exercises to accomplish your goals.
I think he had actually 87 different bicep exercise videos. And I've made a funny little montage about it. It was my pull-up masterclass video. And about 4 minutes in, it was this hilarious segment where I blew him up. Literally, I showed like all of them popping up on the screen, and then he blew himself up with an atomic fart or whatever. It was really funny, but it was highlighting how you don't need to do 87, however many different variations of any given exercise, because it's stupidity. It's nonsense.
He also doesn't believe in progressive overload, doesn't he? At the same time,
he did say something about that in the past, but then he counteracted that, and then he went back on it. I don't even listen to him anymore. I don't think he's a bad person. I just think he's playing for the algorithm, and he's trying to sell product and make money, and he knows what's going to sell. He knows what's going to get clicks and views, and he's a giant lumberjack looking guy who takes a lot of PEDs, which he's basically admitted to. And I mean, no one is going to be that big and massive without taking drugs. Let's be honest. Okay. And all the people that follow him are beginners. They're all beginners, because anyone that has any knowledge would not follow his advice. Okay. We could insert a funny few clips here. I'll send it, to demonstrate exactly what kind of nonsense I'm talking about. But basically, it's not, you have to have a brain and read between the lines and say, oh, maybe doing 60 rep sets of squats is not a good idea. Or maybe, doing 15 different types of bicep curls in one workout or whatever. I don't even remember what nonsense he says, but it's silly. It's silly. So you have to be able to read between the lines. And yes, people, I made so much progress. Yeah, but you're going to also get hurt doing that kind of stuff. You're going to then also hit a wall at some point, because you can't possibly keep up with training like that. Right. And the workouts should not take 2 or 3 hours, which people were saying that his workouts were taking. That's another red flag. You should be in and out of the gym in 1 hour, anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour, 15 minutes. If we're talking about a typical strength training or hypertrophy focused training program, that's how long it should take. I know powerlifting is different. You need very long rests in between sets. We're not talking powerlifting today. This is strength and general conditioning or hypertrophy workouts.
Yeah, from going from average to above average for health or any other reason.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think that's one of the things clients have pointed out to me as a positive. The client who's happy with their program is going to say things like, "I'm surprised I'm getting this great of results in this short of time spent training,"
yep.
Or with this few of exercises or with this few of sets, right? Because every extra element you add to the program, this is kind of like what you're hinting at, right? With all these biceps in the 2-3 hours, it's like, hey, every element you add to exercise that's excessive, even the 1 rep max. So testing strength can be a beautiful thing. 10 rep max or as many pull-ups as possible, push-ups possible, is very different from a 1 rep max on bench. Like,
yes,
there's ways of hitting at these things without being excessive. And if you can get results with your clients without the excess, without the flash, without the whatever, that's the getting the algorithm, you can use that with just like really nice, smooth, dialed in exercises that suit, again, the individual. They're going to love you so much. So for anyone who's watched this, personal trainer considering that, keep that in mind. It'd be better to get more out of less with your client and then build from there as it suits their needs and goals before you just pile it on, which goes back to the drill instructor. The drill instructor is going to say, "Oh yeah, look at this program. They've got to do their 15 exercises. They're going to be here for 2 hours. They're going to really be sore tomorrow." They don't want that. They want results.
No.
They don't want.
That's all coming from ego anyway. That's the
yeah.
person's ego, the trainer, the coach, whatever. That has no place, right? Yeah. I think you know me well enough by now. I've said it in enough of my videos too. I have no ego. I check, and I always say you have to check your ego at the door if you're going to be successful. Right? That's an absolute necessity, must, non-negotiable point. If you go to the gym and you have an ego about you, or as a coach, if you have an ego about you, it's just not good. It's not going to lead to a good place. It's not going to be helpful to your clients, and it's also, from a client's perspective, if you have a general person just working out in the gym, if you have an ego and you go there with that ego, you're going to get injured and you're going to cut your own progress off, right? You're going to limit yourself. So these are all things that everyone should be keeping in mind. It's very important. It's like the core basic recipe to success.
And even from the standpoint, not even as coaching, but anyone just listening, just training for themselves. Patience, guys, be patient.
Yes.
So it's okay if it's taken a little bit longer than you'd like. That doesn't mean you've necessarily stalled out or hit a natty limit or anything crazy like that. Just give it some time. Don't get ahead of yourself. Right? Otherwise, injuries.
Look, by the way, so one thing, this is another topic I think is good to cover as part of this discussion. Your capabilities, things that you're able to do, the workouts, the progressions, things change as you get older. Things change even as you progress through from beginner to intermediate and whatnot, right? But from my own personal perspective, what my training has certainly changed over the years from when I first started, where I could go all out, man. I could in my first few years, I could go almost to failure almost every set. I don't necessarily recommend that, right? But I could go to basically failure almost every set, and it would work well for me, and I could keep going. Like I could, I've had like a 4 or 5 day week routine, 3-day split that I would just keep repeating. I had proper rest. I was able to handle it back then. And, I reverted back to trying that again, not quite the failure, but like that the frequency of that. And this goes back a few years ago. I think it was like 2016. I tried doing it then. And you know what happened? I mean, at first it was working awesome, but within about 2.5 months, I developed tendonitis in both my arms. All right, biceps tendonitis, and it was downward, like by the bottom of my bicep, by the forearm area, and it was brutal. And that took 6 months for me to recover from, going to physical therapy, once or twice a week. It was painful. It was a long recovery, and then I had to, for about another year or more after, I had to kind of be watchful and wary in the gym, because if I did too much volume, or especially if I used too much weight, it would cause a flare up. And it was brief, but I knew my limits. I respected them. And that's part of, your training experience through the years. It's a moving target, like where you're at and what you're capable of. You just, as you get older, your ability levels and what your body can handle, volume, intensity, frequency, all these factors, it's a moving target. And you have to, if you start hitting a wall and all of a sudden you start getting overuse injuries or other problems, okay, now I know that's my threshold. I have to now respect that new limit that I have, and I have to dial it back just a bit, because if you want to stay healthy and if you want to be able to do this for a really long time, then you have to respect it. Otherwise, you're going to get taken out. You're going to get serious tendonitis or snap something or who knows what. So that's one thing that I've learned personally. And I even take that into account when I'm training with my clients. I have to take that into account based on someone's age and experience level, et cetera. That's the way it is.
100%. Yeah, I was just recently speaking to Faz Liff, and his story was similar in a sense of like an injury based on like just change over time. For him, it was spending time, as you remember, right? Time away backpacking. Came back to the deadlifts. It was too much, and the hamstring give. So you want to avoid tendonitis. You want to avoid tears, even a grade 1 tear, right? Like something that has a high probability of being fixed. There's a point where you just really shouldn't be content with injuries. Don't brush things off. Don't ignore them, and don't
ignore them. It's not just going to go away,
right? Yeah. You're
not really going to be 100% just go away.
Yeah, you're not really going to be 100%.
Look, I'm dealing with actually tendonitis issue right now that just flared up about a month ago, and it's been a month, and it's killing me because it's limiting me in what I can do. And it happened for such a stupid reason. I bought this new gym equipment, right? I got this, made a little investment, Rep Fitness, great company. I bought a power rack from them and a functional trainer, which I'm going to be showing in future videos and what. It's awesome. It's beautiful. Amazing piece of equipment. I always wanted something like this. Now I have it. But the whole thing, it came in 2 giant crates, 2 big pallets and it was totaling about 3,000 pounds of stuff. And I had to move it across my whole house from the garage in pieces. And it was, manageable pieces. Some of the boxes were a little unwieldy, but the maximum they weighed was like 60 to 70 pounds. But, and there were things that were 20 to 40 pounds, but it took me like 2 hours to move maybe more, all this stuff. And think about it. I was using, a lot of it was arms, right? Holding stuff with my biceps involved. And it was just such a high volume, repetitive motion that I flared up tendonitis in my left arm. And it has not gone away, and it's killing me. 10 years ago, maybe I would have been able to do that no problem. But now I clearly was not. And it's derailed my training this last month, and it's killing me mentally and physically. I've taken a bit of a setback. So, it was just, I don't think it was ego. It's just like, oh, I could do this. No big deal. And I had my kids helping me out. I had no idea it was going to be this much of a problem. Right. So, okay, I'm not moving 3,000 pounds of equipment anymore. New limit. But that's what it is. It's like you live and you learn, you make mistakes, and you learn to respect where you find that you're at.
Well, and one of the most common ways of presenting, we've hit on this multiple times now, but it's that whole, don't be a sissy, push it to your limit. Yeah, even in your day, right? No pain, no gain, that kind of thing. It's like,
I hate that phrase.
It's like you want to sympathize with what it's getting at, where it's like, come on, get off the couch. We're going to go hit the weights. It's going to be a good time to push yourself just like you did. High school, that's kind of how I got into it. I just thought, I'm just going to go in there and push myself on all these different, see all these machines, play with all of them, right? Figure out what muscles they work and all that stuff. But there is a point where, especially if you really want to do this in the long run, or you want to come back from an injury, maybe you want to start exercising in the first place because of injuries. That's a common reason that I'll see people, is to address pain or some kind of injury they got that had nothing to do with exercise. And if you're going to get success with that, you got to be able to change it. There is a point where caution can't be thrown to the wind anymore. It's not like overtraining is not a myth, or at least overdoing yourself. Maybe it's not always volume is the main thing, but it can be intensity and variation.
It could be any number of factors.
Totally. But overdoing yourself is a very real thing that can be done, and probably is done quite a bit. Now, on that same note, what are your thoughts on overtraining? Do you think it's underappreciated just how many different things can cause these issues, or what? Like what are your thoughts on that whole concept, right?
Look, I think tendonitis is a very common occurrence when someone overdoes it, especially once you start getting into your 30s and above, because as you get older, your tendons and ligaments are not as strong and as pliable as your muscles. And if you start doing something that is too much, pushing too hard, doing too much volume, or doing too much, the frequency is too great, and you're not giving them a chance to fully recover, maybe, right? Or because they do recover a little slower. That's how you can flare this issue up. So things change. And I think that overtraining is, again, a bit of a moving target.
Yeah.
I do think that even when you're younger, you can definitely overtrain and have an issue, right? It's why, look, shin splints, all these other things, these a lot of the time are overtraining issues from running or whatever. So, and it happens to countless teenagers, okay, who happened to me when I was running track for, one season in high school, and I had to quit because of it. Then again, I have flat feet, so it's a whole nother story. But the point is that these are all things like you have to respect that, not increasing the intensity too quickly, not having a massive, having appropriate progressions that you follow will really help prevent most, if not almost all, injuries, especially when you combine them with doing proper form and, just respecting the boundaries that you have, the limitations that you kind of have with your body. All important stuff.
Yeah, 100%. All of those things you guys should be taking into consideration. It's very popular to maximize things, right? Like trying to maximize frequency or maximize intensity. But there comes a point, and I want to make a video on this actually some point in the near future. I call it auditing your program. Why you should sit down and think hard about what really needs to be there, what can go, right? Just like someone's going to come in and say, you guys are spending over budget, right? Like there's a point where training economy and taking your injury history of injuries into consideration, there's a point where you're overspending yourself. So sit down and think, realistically, what actually needs to be here? Do I have a progression model, and can that progression model function if I dial back something? Intensity, volume. I change some of those big picture things after hopefully addressing rep quality of all things, first of all, and just doing things proper in the first place. Ratio mechanics we talked about. But once you've addressed that, like doing the reps right, which is so fundamental to not getting hurt in the long run, can I dial some of these back so that way I don't have these issues? So you
Absolutely.
really don't want to be nursing things, right? And every single thing you add that compounds it together to worse and worse. It's like it was a tricep, now it's the back, now it's the knee, now it's this. How many of these do you really want to deal with to the point where you can't do any of your favorite exercises anymore, or at least you have to modify them greatly just to make them work? So much better to just sit down and think about this stuff and be a little more patient, more careful.
Awesome. Patience is key in this hobby, right? In this lifestyle, I should actually say, because everyone these days wants instant gratification. That's a problem. There is no instant gratification if you're doing things properly. But here's the thing about that. In my experience and in my honest opinion, it's the process that is the best part of this whole thing of fitness. You have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy what you're doing, and the process of achieving your goals and your, the physique you're trying to get, or your strength, or whatever it is that you're striving to achieve. The process is possibly the most important part of it. And, I just said this on one of Jeffrey's videos the other day, and I've said this many times, and all the time to everybody. There are no shortcuts in life worth taking. Okay. Every single shortcut in life, and especially this is true in fitness, has really big consequences. There's no free lunches in life. Okay. So if you take a shortcut, you think it's going to get you somewhere faster. Can it? Maybe. But what are the consequences? What's the cost going to be? Are you going to pay instantly, or are you going to pay down the road? Somewhere down the line, at some point, sooner or later, there is going to be a massive cost that you have to pay. You pay the piper for everything, right? And are you going to limit? I'm talking right now about like someone who takes PEDs, steroids, right? Now, everyone can do what they want to do. I'm not going to tell people what they can do or can't do with their body. Things are legal or illegal. That's obvious, right? If something is illegal, should you be doing it? Probably not. Okay. And also, if it's known to be very unhealthy, look, again, to each their own. Everyone has to make their own choice, have their own, cost benefit or, risk reward ratio, analysis that they do. For me, sorry, I want to live till I'm 100 years old and beyond, and still healthy and mobile and active and fit and happy. Okay. I know if I were to take drugs of any kind, or PEDs, or whatever, that's not going to happen. I'm not making it to 100. I'm probably not going to be, physically fit or healthy or whatever. I'm going to have all kinds of health issues. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. So, to me, following that course is super important. Following the slower progressions, the sustainable and safe, but also very effective, sustainable progressions. That's important. And I love the process. Okay. So that's a big part of it. And yeah, would it be nice to be massive and huge overnight, or like be where I'm at now, like have done that in a matter of a couple of years? I don't even know if I would have done it in a couple of years, but the point is, yeah, it'd be nice, but you wouldn't even have the sense that you earned it as much, because you also know it's temporary, and you didn't fully earn it because something else helped you get there that you cheated. I do look at it as cheating in a way. All right. It kind of is.
Well, and up here too, right? You spend more time getting there the long and the hard way.
Yes.
Come with some knowledge. I think this is one of the best things that natural.
Absolutely, the knowledge.
Right? Like it's like there's like a knowledge deficit in someone who hopped on SARMs and looked amazing in 2 to 3 years. It's like versus
they don't know really what to do to get there.
Yep.
Because everything works. They lifted a can of tomato soup and they built their biceps. I mean, all right, I'm being a little exaggerating here, right? But the point is that you're 100% right about that. You don't have to learn how to deal with the issues and how to the progressions and this and that. And then you can't do that for the rest of your life. Then you have to relearn, and then you end up taking these giant setbacks. So, and you've damaged your body in the process.
Up on TRT when you're 30 because you destroyed your hormonal profile, right?
Exactly. Who wants that? Come on, you want grape nuts down there, or you want to like have I said it right when you're drinking. I was waiting for the.
That was good. That was good.
No, I mean, look, you want to be able to do this sustainably forever. You want to be able to have children. I'm sure, like that becomes a problem, right? So I don't know. It's everyone makes their own choices in life, but then they have to live with it.
You know what, Aaron? We are officially influencers, so we're going to influence the narrative here, right? So, guys, be smart. Stay away from drugs. Maybe we sound like a couple old men right now. That's fine. Somebody out there needed to hear it. It's just not worth it. Say no to the shortcut. Be smart, kid.
I've shown my progression of my own physique through the years in a couple of my videos. I think a couple of semi more recent ones, and let me tell you, staying natural, you can do pretty darn well. Let me tell you. All right. Now, first of all, newbie gains are newbie gains. You're going to make a lot of progress your first 6 to 12 months if you are generally doing things the right way. If you're following a generally good program, you're getting enough sleep and rest and recovery time, you're eating enough protein, right? You have a proper balanced diet. You don't need any supplements. Let me repeat that. You don't need any supplements. You just need to learn how to eat to fuel your goals. That's it. The biggest question I always get from people when they're starting to work out, whether a client or not, is what supplements should I buy? I say zero, none. You don't need any supplements. I don't have any supplements other than the occasional protein shake. And even then I don't have them that often at all. And that's been my standard throughout my whole lifting career, 30 years or so. But getting back to what I was saying, I progressed incredibly well to the point where I went from a scrawny little Steve Urkel looking like kid to being a fitness model, not even like 6 years later. Okay. And you know what? I did it naturally. I was incredibly strong, like stupidly strong. I think my max, the highest I squatted for I think I did maybe like 6 reps, but I also hurt myself. So I was a little stupid back then too. But I squatted 565 back then. Okay. And I only weighed like 185 pounds or 190 pounds at most. I was benching 315. I was doing crazy level stuff. I know this isn't something people normally brag about. I'm not bragging, but my arms, my biceps were crazy strong, like stupidly strong for what biceps typically are. I was curling like I'm talking, and again with good form, because I'm all about form, right? It's a big thing I stress. But I was doing this with like I was curling easy 60, 70 pound dumbbells in each arm, and I was doing crazy things, and who knows? But that was also when I was young and stupid. I didn't know everything I know today. If I could do it all over again, I wouldn't have done all those things because I think it did some damage to me because I probably pushed things too fast back then. But at the same time, I did all this naturally. Okay. So I don't buy into anybody that says, I'm only going to get to XYZ place, with my size and shape and strength if I use drugs. No, you didn't even give yourself a chance. Give yourself a chance to prove it to yourself.
100%. And it all comes back to like, it's a moot point, even if the side that's very much pushing like the natty limit or your natty limit or whatever, or like, I ran out of gains, time to hop on gear. That whole side is, even if there's a nugget of truth somewhere down in there, like obviously we all have, you could say some limits. Like we're probably not going to bench 1,000 pounds natty. Like there's some things that are just like far out, a little too crazy to be realistic. But aside from the obvious extreme example, even if Aaron and I are, let's say we're too optimistic, guess what? You still have to test it to prove it, right? So it's like Aaron just said, you have to prove it to yourself, and there's no point arguing over, because it's unproductive to really get it in your head that you can't. Even if you're a little bit right, it's unproductive to take that mindset and then spiral yourself out of trying in the first place, right?
Yep. Look, an example of this is this guy that I think we both know of. what's his face? Oh my God. I don't even watch his stuff anymore because I can't stand it. It's cringy. But what is his name? Revival. Okay. This guy, I can't even watch his stuff. But when I used to kind of catch it once in a while, he would, he was talking about hopping on steroids, possibly. He was hinting about it. I think he was testing the waters to see what people's reactions would be. He sounds like he's probably going to do it. The guy has only been working out at the point where he was at when he was talking about possibly doing it. He was only on, following a real legit program, like training himself, legit, like hard work and smart work for about 2 years at that point. The guy's only like 21 or 22 years old. I don't even know. Maybe he's a year or two older than that now. I don't know. But he's a young guy, give or take around your age. He didn't even come close, not even close to giving himself enough time and he keeps pushing this idea, right? I haven't seen his stuff recently, so I don't know if he still is. I would imagine he is, because once you start going down that path in your content and whatever, I can't imagine he'd back away.
You open the door to it, right? And then it's just kind of a
Oh, yeah. I really do think he was testing the waters to see how people would respond to it. But, he's a good case in point of someone who, like, you don't even, and also he's claiming to know everything. This goes to the dogmatism that's out there, right? People who are very dogmatic. It's his way or the highway. If you disagree with him, you're stupid. You don't know anything. And it's not just him. There's a million people out there that are like this. And I attribute that to someone who probably doesn't really know enough. I mean, granted, he's only been a fitness professional for a couple of years, maybe almost 3 years at this point, right? What's 2 or 3 years? I've been doing it for over 20 years, all right, professionally. Personally, 30 years. I'm old. All right. I'm sorry. I don't look as old as I am, but I'm getting there. But the point is, I've consistently kept learning over the years of my career. All right. And I keep an open mind. I always am looking to learn from other people, whether it's from research studies. There's always something to take away from those things, but or just having conversations like we're having right now, where, hey, you and I may disagree on certain topics. That's an important conversation to have. Why? We can each take something good away from it, hear the other person's perspective and experience, and say, even though I may not agree with that fully, there's something interesting there. There's something maybe at least part of that, or maybe the whole thing. And I'll try that. And I'm curious to see if that works better or differently or whatever. And there's always some positive or productive takeaway. When you're someone like this guy, Revival, okay, who he shuts down anyone who disagrees with him, because I've certainly disagreed with him respectfully, always respectful. I'm never, you know me, I'm never rude. I'm always polite. I always say things in a very
professional
kind way. I always, thank you. I try my best because I'm a representative of my brand. And I always want to be that nice guy. I always want to be that respectful person, because if I'm not, it doesn't make sense. Like, who's going to want to hire a jerk? That's not who I am anyway. I am a nice guy. I really try, right? I want to do the best I can. Who can I help if I'm being a jerk? So I would make a comment about something. I respectfully disagree with this because of X, Y, Z. And I wouldn't even get a rebuttal that made sense. I would get a bashing of me as a person, character attack, a bullying comment, shutting me down entirely, with not even a hair of a rebuttal of real, actual, solid fact or evidence or anything, because there was no intelligent response to give, because either he didn't have enough knowledge or he just is super dogmatic. And I look at it as that is ego masking massive insecurities. Okay. Now, I don't want to just beat up on him. There's so many people that are like this in our fitness industry.
Did he end up blocking you? Like, are you still able to leave comments?
I am able to comment still, but I did get blocked by Ryan Humiston, who even made a video about me at one point, like calling me out for calling him out so much, holding him accountable. That was a badge of honor for me. I love that, right? Because and I think I'm the only person he's ever called out by name. Why? Because I did the right thing, and I respectfully would hold him accountable. And actually, people would look for my comment to say if he showed something that was of value or something that I called out as being BS. And people respected my opinion more than the stuff he was saying. And it was interesting. So he hated the fact that I was always either, I mean, I would tell him if he was showing something good, because he did sometimes too. There were plenty of times he was giving good information or whatever. I got blocked by Jeff Cavalier, Athlete X.
Oh, that's not surprising.
No, he blocks everybody.
He's famous for that.
So, yeah, he wants an echo chamber. So all these guys, they typically want echo chambers. They don't want people questioning them because it goes against their brand. Look, on my channel, I don't delete any comments whatsoever. Now, the only comments I will delete is if someone is bullying someone. That should not be allowed anywhere.
Oh, yeah, some things are just absurd, or
yes,
obscene.
If someone's bullying someone, that is no place.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But on these echo chamber channels, right? Revival, he not only bullies people himself, but he promotes it by allowing people to do it and not deleting it or stopping it. Never does that. Openly promotes it. It's terrible. So, that's another negative sign of someone who should not be in our industry, because what are they contributing?
Yeah, he's definitely got some growing up to do, right? Like we both do this for a living as a coaching part, and also we make the videos. Yeah, maturity goes a long way, and you said this well when you said ego needs to be checked. So who knows? Maybe in the next 5 years he'll come around. I think we've seen some.
I wish the best for him. I'll say this. Yeah. I do wish the best for him. I have no ill will towards him. My only objective is to help people. And I hope that he comes around and changes his ways instead of chasing clout and whatever. I hope he cleans his act up and matures and can kind of shed that ego, deal with his insecurity. Again, I say this like it's a fact. I'm just assuming based on what I see at face value. I want the best for him. I hope the guy becomes successful. Okay, I do. And I hope he's able to really help a lot of people, because that would be good for him. It would be good for the people he helps in the industry as a whole. We don't need more villains. We need more good people, not villains. We don't need someone who's just going to be out for their own fame and fortune. We need people who are there to help people and be noble and do it for the right reasons.
Well,
that's what we need.
He came up with that term, noble natties. I say cheers.
And it blew up in his face, man. Blew up in his face. Yeah, with my Poland Spring water bottle. No, he thought it was going to be an insult, and we all ran with it. I love it. It's
hilarious. What a great term. There's so many cases like that. Unfortunately he's not the rare exception. It's all too common.
Dime a dozen. He just happened to be the one I picked to talk about right now. But I could list it a list like hundreds, thousands of people long that are just like that, and it's a shame.
Yeah. Now on the positive side of that, on the flip side, what would be some good resources that you'd recommend to people? Obviously, you make videos, and I'd recommend you to my audience, but what would be some other good examples who stay away from shenanigans?
Well, and first of all, I need to make much more content, much more frequently, right? My frequency has been low. I'm a perfectionist, and I there's a lot of other things business-wise going on and clients that took me away for, I have a lot of people I work with and whatnot. So I'm working on that. That's going to improve. My frequency of content is going to dramatically improve in the near future. So having said that, thank you. Obviously just to name a few off the top of my head, Jeffrey Berry Schofield, great guy, solid source of information. I don't agree with every single thing he says, but that's expected. That's a healthy thing. I do agree with the vast majority. I think he's a solid source.
You can actually you can leave comments on him. I've made a video response to him disagreeing. He didn't have anything rude to say to me. He actually sat down and typed a paragraph of a thought out response, and I appreciate it.
I actually saw that. That was a productive little dialogue. Yeah. And then natural hypertrophy, another solid guy, and he has different perspectives also, and it's important for people to get their information from not just one source. They should be watching my videos, your videos, Jeffrey's, natural hypertrophies. They should be watching, maybe Johnny Shreve, maybe some of these other. There's who else? I mean, there's a million people I could name, right? There's so many different people in the industry. What's his name? Who passed away? Was a wealth of information.
John Meadows.
John Meadows. Yes, that's who I was getting at. He was such a good person. People criticize him. He took steroids. You know what? Who cares? He was a good, genuine person who had incredible, vast knowledge, really the salt of the earth type of a guy, and he really cared about helping people. And so that's another guy, and they're still pumping out content from him. It's actually a good thing because he had such an enormous amount of knowledge, library of information. So there's so many people. There's so many good people out there, and even some. By the way, there are some of the villains that you can still maybe learn from, or if you just want to learn what not to do, watch them. Although then you'll be promoting their junk by watching it, but whatever. But it's I guess that the big key is if something looks too or sounds too good to be true, it probably is, right? So if someone's promising you the world on their program or doing this, using this supplement they're promoting or whatever, that we have this special program and Harvard studied this, and you know what I'm talking about with that, eating salad or pizza or nonsense. Everyone's seen those ads. Don't listen to that. It's too good to be true. It's obviously BS. Okay.
Unfortunately, it looks like that guy. That guy's actually doing pretty well. Have you seen his new ads on YouTube videos? He's got like celebrities and like Dr. Drew, guy with glasses, is even endorsing him. So unfortunately, that company has not died.
They're paying people off, is what they're doing. They're paying them gobs and gobs of money. That's why. It's they have so much money behind them from the business that invested in him, and that's how they're getting away with it. By the way, almost every client that I shouldn't say that. A lot of clients that hire me will ask me, "Oh, what do you think of V-Shred and all that? Whatever." I'm like, "What do I think of him? I think he's full of what? I think they have terrible, terrible advice and programs. I think they're just trying to sell supplements to people that are absolute junk, and they're just raking in money." Preying on beginners.
Right? Like it was a scheme from the start. It was orchestrated to be like, this guy, he's got the look, right? He's handsome, he's muscular. All right, let's pump it up there, right? Like this is not. It's really not his brainchild. Like it's very clearly not Vince.
No. The early and his early version of him, it was clear he didn't know what he was even talking about. So they just picked him because this company that invested in him to be the face of V-Shred, and all their products that are affiliated with it. They picked him because he was a good-looking face in good shape and he spoke well. Okay, but he really didn't know much. So, it's unfortunate that's what gets the clicks and views. Protein Man, like, he's a good dude. He's a great guy.
Protein Man, shout out. He's jumping up and down in his chair right now.
I was actually chatting with him today. Such a nice guy. He was
my first episode on this playlist. I don't know if you saw our interview, but it's good. I like Protein.
Yeah, he's just a good person, and I think he's gonna be somebody in this industry one day, and I hope so.
He's jacked. He's
a lot of the little guys, the smaller channels are so underrated, and they're just getting their feet wet still, and they're just figuring out their path. And I know in my case, I'm a smaller channel. I have 4,600 subscribers. Okay, that's small in vast scheme of things in YouTube, but at the same time. The only thing, I only have, I think, 24 videos, because each one was taking me 200 hours to make. If I had 100 videos, I'd be vastly farther than where I am. I just need to pump stuff out faster, and I'll reach a ton more people. I'm my own worst enemy. I need to get on my way so I can start reaching and helping more people, and that's the end of it. But
I look forward to when you put up the next video, man.
Thank you.
Good. Good.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it too.
You get a chance.
It's gonna happen, man. I'm working on it. I'm putting things in place to make it all happen.
Anything else you want to cover or drive home to the audience?
I mean, a couple things maybe. I think keep your programs more simple. They don't have to be complicated. Anything that is overly complicated, it's just there's no reason, right? You shouldn't be swapping out exercises every workout. You should be tracking everything. Write down what you did in every workout, right? Saying, I know what I did. Well, yeah, but you won't remember 5 workouts ago what you did. Track it so you see your actual progress over time visibly. And it's even better if you could do it in an Excel spreadsheet, put it all in there later, and then you can actually turn it into a graph and see your progress visibly like that. Point is, track your progress. Learn how to eat healthy. Don't overcomplicate things. I try to, in my videos, I try to present things in a way that is educational. That's the teacher in me, but interesting to keep people's attention. But over everything else, simple. I don't want to overcomplicate things. I want to explain it in a way that is like, okay, this is the basics that you need to learn. This is how to do X, Y, Z, and this is the how and the why. That's it. That you don't have to overcomplicate things, right? That's like, it's just silly. People want to have a lot of variety and whatever to keep things interesting. Okay, but it's not going to get you where you want to be. That's the thing. It's not going to get overcomplicating and swapping exercises in and out all the time. It's not going to give you the results you're really looking for. You might get somewhere with it, but it's not going to be anywhere near as effective as following a well thought out, well planned out, simpler program. Okay. And yeah, swapping an exercise out here or there every couple of workouts or whatever, that's okay. But that should be about the extent of it. And then it should be the volume, intensity, and frequency, other things that change and swap around more, because that's the progression models. So that's a basic big thing, right? And and again, to double down on this, single biggest piece of advice I can give everybody who's watching and listening: check your ego at the door. If you can do that, you've won half the battle right there. Keep an open mind, listen to other people, learn from what everybody is saying, absorb these different bits of advice, and see what works best for you as an individual. And don't just blindly follow one or two people and say they're right, they have all the answers. That is absolutely not true. Okay, we can all learn something from everybody out there, no matter how many years of experience we have, or no matter how much education we've had. It's just a fact. I'm learning something new every day, and I love that. I love that about this industry. I love that about my job, and as a hobby, as a lifestyle. I love that I can still learn something new every day, that I can improve my own training and my own life, professionally, my career, whatever, and also then provide that knowledge, that new knowledge, to my clients, and continue to adapt over time. So that's my advice to other people like us, content creators, fitness professionals. It's also my advice to all the people who are watching, who just work out in the gym every day. I think that those are all incredibly valuable things to keep in mind and to follow.
Yeah, that was well said. That was well said. I feel like you were almost like picking points out of my brain that I hope to see from different influencers, and I think that's such a common theme among, let's say, the smaller channels, the more reputable channels, even the ones that have tens of thousands, or like Jeffrey, is you're going to emphasize fundamentals. Start simple and keep it more simple. Be consistent. Check the ego. Like these are things that will never be said enough. Right? There's always going to be new lifters learning, and maybe the same ones, maybe even we along the way. We need to get reminded of these things too, because it's easy to get carried away, even when you're starting.
Very true. By the way, ease your way into any workout. Okay. The kiss of death, like I said earlier, is jumping headfirst into a training program and pushing yourself too hard. It's so, I've addressed this in a couple of my videos too, where people go to the gym first time starting out, for those beginners out there, and they go and they think, I'm in the gym, I've got to work my butt off. And they think they have to start running 2 miles on the treadmill right away on their first day. And they start throwing up in buckets. Or they start doing way too many exercises and lifting heavier than they should. But in their mind, they're thinking, if I'm here, I'm going to do this. I'm going to work hard. That's not success. That doesn't translate into success. I like every one of my clients, I ease them in at an appropriate rate, not too slow, not too fast. Therefore, I mitigate their soreness. And I to the point where, they should not be feeling too sore especially after a couple of weeks in. You're effectively easing them in, so they're never going to hate life after a workout, and they're going to enjoy their workouts, because that's a hugely important part of it. You have to enjoy what you do, right? And that's another, I should have said that before too. It's another big piece of advice. Work your way into it at an appropriate rate. Don't go, all out right away. And that's it.
Yeah, that's really well said. And by the way, are you obviously you run FitLabb? Are you guys taking on more clients at the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to be making some stuff up. Oh, I only have 2 slots left.
Yeah.
That's all. By the way, that's all nonsense. If you ever hear someone or see someone post something, oh, I only have 2 slots left for the fall. Yeah, and then they take like 500 people on because it's all marketing and sales. Yes, I do have slots available. I generally always will. And you know what? If I ever do get filled up, and it becomes a point where I can't handle it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to hire someone who I respect to help me, who I think is a top level professional to help me also work with my clients, right? Because someone who I think is capable and able to do that. I'm not to that point yet, but I suspect I will be at some point in the not too distant future. And, you know, I want to be able to scale what I do and be able to reach and help as many people as I possibly can. So yes, if someone ever does decide they want my help, and I will gladly be happy to assist and help them out.
Cool. Well, folks, he comes very much recommended. So be sure to check that out if you're interested in hiring a coach. And in addition to that, give him a follow on Instagram and YouTube at FitLabb. Aaron, thanks so much for joining me today. It was a real pleasure to speak with you, man.
Likewise. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Always a good time. And we should do this again.
Absolutely, we should. To the audience, hope you guys really enjoyed this one. Go check out his channel and all of his content. Expect more videos in the future coming down the pipeline. And take care, guys.